Midnight warning, black girl screams Don T get in the car. Shocking twist for the billionaire. As the clock struck midnight, the city glimmered under a sky that rumbled with unsettling energy. Shadows lengthened, and a chilling scream ripped through the night, "Don't get in the car." A figure rushed through the fog like a ghost, her panicked eyes wide and brimming with terror. It was almost as if time had stopped, and the stars themselves held their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash of fate. What dark force had unleashed this tension? Why did it feel like something was about to snap? Nearby, a sleek black car, glistening like a predator in the moonlight, sat ominously still. It promised luxury, power, yet there was a sinister edge to it. Every detail, from the tinted windows to the throaty purr of the engine, screamed discomfort. As the girl screamed, bystanders froze, their hearts racing in unison. Why wasn't anyone helping? The tension thickened, suffocating the air, as whispers danced around, "She must be crazy, and what could possibly be wrong?" Suddenly, the car door creaked open, and a man stepped out, tall, impeccably dressed, with an aura that radiated wealth and danger. This was no ordinary billionaire. There was a chill about him that sent shivers down the spines of onlookers. Was he a savior or a monster? The girl's eyes darted toward him, filled with a mix of fear and desperation. It felt like everyone was living in a surreal nightmare. But she couldn't turn back now. The instinct to run pulsed through her veins, urging her to escape this looming dread before it took hold. Just when it seemed the world would explode into chaos, another voice joined the fray, calm yet heavy with authority. "Stop. You don't know what you're doing." But even as that voice rang out, the tension only escalated. The crowd leaned in, breathless, faces dripping with curiosity and concern. Was there something deeper at play? What secrets danced behind those haughty eyes? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. The girl took a half step back, her heart hammering in her chest. Who was she to disrupt this carefully orchestrated dance of power? As she weighed her options, the billionaire's gaze locked onto hers, a smirk creeping across his face. The world around them faded, the ghost of possibility hanging thick in the air. Who would win in this battle of wills, the terrified girl or the mesmerizing billionaire? What shocking twist lay just beyond that moment, just waiting to unfold like an intricate web? And as the clock continued to tick, a lingering question permeated the crowd: what would happen next? The crowd held its breath, enraptured by the unfolding drama. Each person felt the heavy weight of the moment rest on their shoulders, the air thickening with unspoken tension. The billionaire's eyes glinted in the darkness, his smirk widening as if he savored the spectacle, relishing the thrill of power. It was as though he were feeding off their uncertainty, his presence consuming the space, drawing them all into his orbit. "I'm not going back," the girl shouted, her voice quivering but resolute. A ripple of surprise coursed through the onlookers. They exchanged glances, stunned. They had expected panic, not defiance. What had pushed her to this brink? Who was she really? The billionaire's expression shifted, intrigued or perhaps amused. "You think you can stop me?" he replied, his voice smooth, like the purr of the engine behind him. Unnerved whispers slithered through the crowd, curiosity clashed with horror, as eyes flickered between the girl and the man who stood so confidently against her. In that moment, a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder, slicing through the tension like a knife. It was a summons, an impending conclusion that might boil over soon. The girl seized the opportunity to escape, darting to the side, her heart racing. But where could she run in this sea of stairs? Every step she took felt both powerful and futile, as if invisible chains held her still. Suddenly, she felt a firm grip on her arm. Fear gripped her chest, and she spun around, eyes wide, ready to fight. But it was a woman, older and wearing a uniform. "Miss, it's not safe here." The officer's tone was urgent yet soothing. The billionaire watched with a frown, his smirk faded under the flickering streetlight, replaced by something darker. "Let her go," he commanded, voice laced with an unyielding, icy calm that seemed to resonate with authority. The tension shifted again, the crowd leaning in closer. "She's not just a girl," he continued, and there was a dangerous gleam in his eye. "She's a key to something much larger than either of us." The unspoken words trailed off into the night, leaving a lingering sense of dread hanging in the air. What did he mean? A key? The crowd buzzed with confusion, their minds racing with the implications. Time appeared to slow as realization dawned on them. Banners of doubt waved among them, questions swarmed. If she was truly a key, then what door could she possibly open? The officer hesitated, her gaze flicking between the billionaire and the girl. "What do you mean?" she asked sharply, her instincts warning her to protect the girl at all costs. The billionaire leaned closer, his voice lowering to a whisper that still carried through the gathered crowd. "This girl is involved in something, much bigger than this neighborhood, perhaps far more dangerous than anyone understands." His gaze hardened, a blend of menace and allure swirling in his features. The officer frowned, her arm tightening around the girl. "She's coming with me," she insisted, glancing back, ready to wrest her away from this man who radiated danger, but the billionaire merely laughed, a deep, unsettling sound that seemed to echo around them. "You think that's what she wants?" And just like that, in the vortex of power struggling for control, an unexpected scream erupted again, drowning out the sirens. "Help! No!" Heads turned instinctively, chaos was moving in from the other side of the block, and a group of figures emerged, cloaked in shadow, moving fast. It was more than a warning shot now. With the crowd's collective gasp, a chilling realization washed over the onlookers. "This isn't just about her," someone in the crowd shouted. "We're all in danger." Could the girl truly escape from the web of deceit and terror that tightened around them? Or had she unwittingly stepped into a trap that could claim them all? The night thickened with uncertainty as the reality of their precarious situation began to settle over them. What would happen next? Would the truth emerge before it was too late, or would the city devour them all whole in the dark? The crowd's tension snapped like a taut wire, spiraling into chaos as the cloaked figures surged forward. Heartbeats raced, breaths quickened. The girl stood frozen, the officer's grip firm but shaking. "Run!" the officer urged, but her words were drowned out by the frenzy around them. The billionaire's gaze darted to the approaching shadows, his previous swagger faltering for the first time. "No!" he shouted, but it was too late. The figures were on them, a wave of darkness crashing against the desperate light of the street lamps. Panic erupted. Bodies collided, and screams pierced the night. The girl spotted a glint of metal, a knife? No, it was too far away. She needed to move, to do something, anything. Her instincts kicked in, and she yanked free from the officer's grip, darting toward the alleyway, the darkness promising a hiding place. Behind her, she heard the officer shout a warning, but her focus narrowed. The alley was her only escape route. She prayed it would lead her somewhere safe, anywhere but back to the billionaire. The chaos of the crowd faded behind her. Each step reverberated with fear, driving her deeper into the shadows. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she reached the alley's end. She peeked around the corner, heart pounding violently. The main street was a frenzy, with figures weaving and spinning like wild leaves caught in an autumn storm. She pressed herself against the brick wall, hoping to blend into the background, but just as she thought she might be safe, a figure emerged from the darkness, one of the cloaked men. He was taller than the others, moving with a predatory grace. She could feel his eyes on her, studying her like prey. Her stomach knotted. Should she run? Could she outrun him? He took a step closer, his hood slipping back to reveal a familiar face, one that haunted her dreams. You thought you could escape? His voice was like poison, dripping with mockery. It was one of the men who had been part of her past, a shadow that had followed her long before tonight. Go away. She gasped, panicked, fumbling for the exit she had just crossed into. But he shook his head, a sly grin spreading on his lips. You're in way over your head. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed nearby, shifting her focus back to the chaos unfolding in the street. Someone had toppled over a dumpster, and for a moment, the shadows hesitated, assessing the situation. It was the distraction she needed. She bolted past him, adrenaline surging, determination strong. No longer terrified of the girl she was a force, a tempest racing against time. The density of danger surrounded her, but there was no turning back. As she burst into the open street, gasps filled the air again. She spotted the officer scrambling, trying to regain control amidst the turmoil. Over here. The officer called, frantic. But the crowd surged, unpredictable and electric. The billionaire stood at the edge, shouting commands, but his presence felt less certain than before. The grip of danger was tightening, but she sensed something shifting, a chance emerging from the natural chaos of fear and urgency. Stay with me. The officer insisted, pulling the girl to her side. We've got to move. Eyes flickered to the cloaked figure, now caught amid the confusion, but she knew the threat was far from over. The girl turned to the officer, her mind racing. What do we do? They're coming for me. This isn't just about me. Trust me, the officer urged. You have to stay strong. There's no time to explain then. A loud explosion rocked the street, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Fire erupted elsewhere, light slicing through the night, illuminating chaos unfolding wildly. The billionaire's composure shattered, his eyes wide with unveiled fear. No! Stop this! He roared, but his voice was lost in the chaos. What was happening? In that moment of distraction, could the girl seize the opportunity to uncover the truth? Did she truly hold the key to something greater, something that might just save them all? She gripped the officer's arm and willed herself to move. We have to find the truth. But as they ran into the depths of the street, shadows latched on, and the question echoed louder. Was there truly safety anywhere in this empire's mess, or had they all simply exchanged one prison for another? Explosion flames lit the chaos, casting grotesque shadows that danced violently against the buildings. Sirens wailed in the distance, a piercing reminder that salvation was still a heartbeat away. The crowd was a mass of jitter and fear, desperately trying to escape the unseen terror chasing them. Follow me. The officer shouted, gripping the girl's arm more tightly as they sprinted down the street. Reality twisted around her, choking her with panic. She wanted to scream, to somehow make sense of it all, but nothing came out. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and each footfall felt like a drumbeat in her chest, urging her to keep moving. They ducked into a nearby store, a crumbling storefront mostly hidden by the thick smoke from the explosion. Inside, cardboard boxes and broken chairs littered the floor, remnants of an empty life. The officer pulled her behind a counter, pressing a finger to her lips, urging silence. We wait, she cautioned, her eyes scanning for threats. Every second felt like an eternity, the oppressive silence deafening. The only sounds were the distant churn of confusion outside and the pounding rhythm of their racing hearts. Outside, frantic voices mingled with the crackling flames, creating a symphony of terror. What do we do? The girl whispered, leaning closer, her voice quivering. She felt small and vulnerable, lost in the churning storm of fear. Just breathe, the officer replied. We need to think. They're after something or someone. A shadow flickered outside the window. Her heart skipped a beat. Do you think they can find us here? The officer shook her head, but uncertainty flashed in her eyes. We've got to wait until we know it's safe to move. Trust me. Suddenly, their sanctuary erupted in noise. A loud crash echoed from the aisle directly behind them. The girl flinched, her body going cold as the officer pulled out her weapon, standing at the ready. Stay close, she warned, steeling herself against the unknown threat, but no one emerged from the shadows. Instead, silence hung heavily in the air once more, cloaking them in dread. They exchanged glances, and the officer's eyes spoke what her lips were too tight to say: they needed to get out. Let us move, the officer finally breathed. They carefully edged toward the back, trying to gauge the safest route. But then the unmistakable sound of footsteps began to echo through the corridor, deliberately slow. The girl felt a tingling at the back of her neck. Please, hurry, she mumbled, taking a step back. The officer nodded, guiding her toward a back door that seemed to lead into darkness. They needed to take this leap of faith. When they stepped outside, the chaos hit them like a wall. Flames swallowed part of the street while panicked voices rang through the air, each a reminder of how fragile everything was. Where do we go? The girl asked, overwhelmed. The officer scanned the area, her eyes narrowing. Toward the club, it's near. We can't stop. Without another word, they dashed down the alleyway, skirting danger as they maneuvered between blurred lines of panic. The girl's heart raced faster than her feet. What lay ahead? Would they find protection, or was it more of this twisted game woven into the fabric of the night? As they reached the end of the alley, a figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar face with a gleam of urgency in his eyes. There you are. I've been looking for you. No. The officer shouted, recognizing the newcomer. Get back. But it was too late. The girl stumbled, caught between desperation and fear as he lunged forward, reaching for her. The chaos swirling around her blurred the lines of friend and foe as she grasped for clarity in a world spiraling out of control. Was this their chance to uncover the truth, or was it a trap? With danger closing in and betrayal lurking in every shadow, could she trust anyone to protect her? In that instant, despite the dread pressing down on her, one thought surged above all: what if the answer to her freedom rested in the hands of someone she feared most? The officer lunged forward, her body a shield between the girl and the figure that surged from the shadows. Get back! She yelled again, commanding with a fierce urgency that rang through the chaos. Time slowed as the girl's heart thundered in her chest. She couldn't decipher whether this man was savior or threat. Liam, stop. I swear I'll shoot. The officer's voice cracked like thunder, creating an electric tension in the air. The man paused, hands raised. His expression was a mix of desperation and confusion. Wait. I know her. He shouted, eyes darting between them. But the officer did not lower her weapon. The girl's pulse raced as she struggled to process it all. Liam. She blinked, a flicker of recognition breaking through her haze of fear. He was her brother's friend, someone who had laughed alongside them just months ago, before everything fell apart. Why are you here? You shouldn't be. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. You shouldn't be anywhere near this. They're coming for you. He insisted, glancing over his shoulder nervously. We need to go, now. I thought I'd lost you. What do you know? The officer interjected harshly, her eyes narrowing. Why do they want her? Because of what she knows, he replied, breathless, stepping closer with caution. They're not just after money, they're after something much bigger. A secret that could destroy lives. The girl's stomach twisted. Was she a key player in some grand scheme? A sense of dread washed over her, mixing with a raw desperation. They didn't have time for games. More footsteps echoed from the alleyway, and the officer's grip tightened around her weapon. We don't have time for this. She warned, urgency boiling beneath her calm facade. Either you tell us everything, or we're leaving you here. Fine, Liam conceded, glancing back again. There's an SUV parked around the corner. We have a chance to escape. But we need to move fast. Get to the car first, or we're done, the officer said, taking charge. We need a plan, and you're going to help us, Liam. No more lies. The urgency in her voice cut through the confusion, thrumming a fearful rhythm in the girl's veins. She could still hear the distant chaos, the sirens growing louder, flames dancing behind them. Let us go, the officer commanded. She set the pace, leading the way and positioning herself protectively in front of the girl, but still leaving the path open for Liam to guide them. Each step resonated like a countdown, the noise from the street following them into the muffled chaos of the alley. But just as they reached the mouth of the alley, a shadow loomed large. A figure materialized from the smoke, brandishing a weapon, a dark grin stretched sinisterly across their face. Thought you could outrun me, did you? The figure's voice was low and smooth, carrying a weight behind it that sent chills creeping over the girl's skin. Run! The officer barked, adrenaline sparking through her. The girl instinctively grasped Liam's arm, dread coiling in her stomach as they dashed toward the street. But her mind raced with one question: what had Liam gotten them into? Why did you come here? She gasped, the truth feeling slippery, like the ground beneath her feet. Because I thought I could save you. But then, another explosion rocked the ground, sending shards of debris raining around them. They stumbled, caught off guard as flames leapt menacingly higher, illuminating the fear in their eyes. Keep moving. The officer yelled, pulling them both forward as panic gripped the air around them. A heartbeat passed, and in that split second of confusion, the shadow of figure she recognized now grinned wider, as if they savored their chaos. This isn't over, they taunted before disappearing back into the thickening smoke. The girl's breath caught. Who could she trust? As they raced forward, the officer's words replayed in her mind. The truth was out there, nestled in the half-lit corners of the night, but was she ready to face it? With danger closing in and every heartbeat echoing with uncertainty, she wondered what hidden perils lay ahead. And if escaping tonight would even bring her closer to answers, or deeper into a nightmare she never asked for. They barreled into the street, panic thrumming through their veins as the heat from the flames danced at their backs. The air was thick with smoke, and the world around them felt suspended in chaos. The officer pushed them forward, her body taut with resolve, but the girl's heart twisted achingly with fear and confusion. Where's the SUV? The officer shouted, her voice strained, barely heard over the distant wailing sirens and the crackle of fire. Liam glanced around wildly, his eyes wide and frantic. It's over there. He pointed, dragging the girl toward a dimly lit parking lot across the street. She could barely see through the swirling smoke, shadows dancing like phantoms. Each step felt heavier than the last. Stay close. The officer ordered, still scanning their surroundings as they crossed the street. The headlights from a few nearby vehicles cast eerie shadows that flickered like spirits trying to flee their realm. Hurry! Liam urged, his breath ragged, pulling her faster. As they neared the SUV, a harsh laugh echoed from the shadows, slicing through the chaos. You think you can escape that easily? The voice was familiar, dripping with mockery. The girl froze. No, it can't be, she murmured, turning towards the sound. Before she could comprehend, a figure stepped out from the darkness. Jared, the man who had once been a friend turned foe. His presence unleashed a flood of memories, smiles, laughter, and then betrayal. She felt nausea rise in her throat. Jared! Liam protested, shoving the girl behind him. Get away from her. Why, Liam? She's the last piece of the puzzle, Jared sneered, stepping closer, his body language oozing confidence, as if he had orchestrated every moment of this hysteria. You really think you can save her? You're too late. The officer leveled her gun at Jared, eyes steely. Step away from them. Or what? You'll shoot me? Jared laughed, glancing at the flames behind him, then fixed his gaze on the girl, his tone shifting. You really don't know, do you? The bombshell you're sitting on? The secrets that could send the whole city to its knees? Enough! The officer cried out, her voice trembling only slightly. Whatever you think you know, it ends here. You'll be arrested for what you've. But a low rumble grew closer, overshadowing her words. The girl's heart raced as the SUV's engine roared to life. No! She gasped, realizing the danger. They can't get to us if we stay together. Jared's eyes sparkled with malice. That's adorable, but you're not calling the shots anymore. He nodded, and from behind him, shadows melded into figures, his men, emerging from the smoke, weapons drawn, eyes glinting with malicious intent. Fall back! The officer barked, pulling Liam and the girl away instinctively. The life-or-death stakes twisted tighter, the night growing more treacherous. The girl's mind raced. Why was she at the center of all this? What secret had she unknowingly stumbled into? As they turned to flee, the officer shouted, "Get to the car, now!" But in the corner of her eye, the girl caught a flicker of movement. Someone emerged from the shadows, another figure. This one, smaller, quicker. "Don't get in the car!" The child shrieked, voice shrill, cutting through what felt like an endless moment. Panic churned in the girl's stomach as she looked back, heart pounding against her ribs. The warning echoed in her ears like a death knell. "Run!" The officer yelled, pushing them toward the back seat while focusing on the oncoming men. That unearthly scream lingered, confusing and chilling. "Why shouldn't we get in?" the girl shouted back. But before she could process an answer, chaos erupted. Jared lunged forward, rage contorting his face, while the officer fired, the gunshots ringing sharper than any siren. The world disintegrated around them, and in the midst of it all the girl was left reeling. What was happening? Who could she trust? And then the child's voice echoed again, terrifying and unwavering, warning her of a fate she could not yet comprehend. The child's warning hung in the air like a thick fog. Time seemed to slow as the officer's gun erupted with deafening pops, echoing against the chaos of crackling fire and panicked shouts. The girl's heart pounded in her chest, wild and erratic, as she grappled with the reality unraveling in front of her. "Go!" the officer shouted again, urgency slicing through her words. Liam yanked the girl's arm, propelling her toward the SUV, but her feet felt glued to the ground. "No!" the girl cried, torn between instinct and confusion. "We can't leave. Trust me." Liam pleaded, his eyes wide with fear. "Just get in." But Jared's men were closing in, shadows shimmering menacingly in the flickering light. She could see their faces now, hard, determined, ready to strike. She swallowed, her throat dry, the weight of Liam's words pressing down on her. The officer continued firing, each shot sending shockwaves of terror through the girl. "Get in! Now!" With an exhausted determination, she turned and dashed around to the back of the SUV, praying it wouldn't be too late. The engine roared, the beast ready to eat up any chance of escape. She scrambled inside, throwing herself into the seat as Liam followed close behind. "Lock the doors," the officer commanded, her presence a shield against the approaching storm. The girl fumbled with the locks, heart racing, barely registering the chaos outside. Jared advanced with relentless fury, his men flanking him. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he shouted, venom dripping from his voice. "Officer, hurry!" Liam shouted as the SUV began to rock under the weight of Jared's men pressing close. The girl tightened her grip on the door handle, preparing for the worst. In that split second, the officer dove into the front seat, her face straining with urgency. "Just hold on," she barked. The SUV lurched forward, tires squealing against the asphalt, and the girl felt a jolt lash through her body. They were moving, but a shattering impact rocked the car. A figure had lunged, slamming against the side with a sickening thud. "Drive!" the girl screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Hold on. The officer fought against the steering wheel as they swerved, barely avoiding the chaos behind them. The sounds of shouting and gunfire blurred into a harrowing symphony, growing distant as they raced away. Liam's eyes darted nervously around the interior of the SUV. What just happened? Who was that kid? Why didn't we listen? Glancing back through the rear window, the girl's heart sank. A thick plume of smoke was rising, a shadowy figure fade into the night, the child's voice now a faint echo in her mind. I don't know. She cried, panic surging again. But there was something about her warning, something we missed. The officer gritted her teeth, determination visible. What did she say? Did you hear? The girl's mind raced. She said don't get in the car. She knew something. The officer's gaze sharpened. Then we've got to find her. We can't let whatever this is catch up with us. A terrifying realization settled in the girl's stomach. Secrets intertwined with danger, threats that ran deeper than they could imagine. Liam's phone buzzed in his pocket, abruptly breaking the tense silence. He pulled it out, his face falling as he read the text. It's from my dad. He knows we didn't make it home. Is he safe? The girl asked, dread creeping up her spine. Before Liam could respond, the officer slammed the brakes, the sudden stop sending them lunging forward. What's wrong? The blaring alarm of an approaching vehicle shattered the night. The girl's heart plummeted at the sleek black SUV skidding into view, menacing headlights cutting through the dark like daggers piercing flesh. Get ready, the officer said, her voice steady. But the girl felt a cold explosion of fear. They were being hunted, and only the tip of the iceberg had been uncovered. If that's Jared's crew, we won't be able to outrun them, Liam said, voice quavering. A sinister smile bloomed on the officer's face, but it reached her eyes only with defiance. We won't run. We're going to fight. But as the black SUV closed in, a single thought consumed her: what secrets were left to discover in this game of survival? And as headlights glared down on them, ready to plunge them into darkness, the girl realized that nothing they faced would prepare them for the ultimate truth lurking just beneath the surface. The black SUV bore down on them like a predator scenting its prey. Heart racing, the girl felt the air tighten in her lungs. The officer turned her head, adrenaline masking the fear in her eyes, and gripped the steering wheel firm. Stay low, she shouted, her voice piercing the thickening tension. Liam ducked and pulled the girl down with him, their breaths mingling with the smell of fear and sweat as they huddled in the back seat. Officer, they're coming for us, Liam hissed, dread lacing his voice. We have to get out of here. The officer's eyes were locked forward, mind racing through options. Not yet. I need to find a place to hide. Her voice trailed off as the headlights of the pursuing SUV barreled closer, illuminating glimpses of the menacing figures inside. The tires screeched, echoing a deep, unsettling threat. Suddenly, the officer swerved sharply, throwing the car into a side street, jostling them in their seats. The tires squealed in protest, but she didn't hesitate. Narrow alleyways zipped past them, a maze that twisted through darkness. They needed a plan. Do you see anything? The officer asked, urgency slicing through every word. The girl peered through the tinted windows, eyes straining to catch movement in the shadows. I think I saw a side entrance to that old building up ahead. She pointed, mind racing. If we can get there, maybe they won't find us. Hold on, the officer yelled, pressing down on the gas pedal. The SUV rocketed forward, jolting as it hit a bump. The girl's stomach dropped, fear crashing like waves against her resolve. Come on, she whispered, her heart pounding. But the black SUV remained in relentless pursuit, headlights swinging like a spotlight through the night, illuminating the chaos around them. They dashed past broken crates and shattered glass, every turn a frantic gamble with their lives. Brace yourselves. The officer braced them as she slammed on the brakes again, making a hard turn toward the building's entrance. The SUV lurched but slid into place, skidding to a stop just inches from a wall. "Get out! Get out!" the officer shouted as she threw the door open, adrenaline fueling her movements. The three of them scrambled out, the rush of cold night air hitting their faces like icy water. The girl glanced back, terror flowing through her veins as the black SUV swerved to a halt, men spilling out like vipers ready to strike. "Inside! Now!" the officer commanded, urgency and authority resonating in her voice. The girl sprinted ahead, glancing back just in time to see one of Jared's men lock eyes with her, a predator sniffing out its prey. She dashed through the entrance, adrenaline propelling her forward into the dark recesses of the building, fingers trembling as they fumbled with a door. Once inside, they pressed against the wall, breathless and strained. The girl's thoughts reeled. "What are we doing here? They'll find us. We need to find a way out, but also a way to confront them," the officer replied, her eyes scanning for shadows. "Liam, check that door." As Liam crept toward a vintage wooden door at the end of the hallway, the girl's thoughts whirled with fear and confusion. Why was this happening, and what had Jared wanted? The unexpected confrontation twisted deeper into a labyrinth of dread. Suddenly, the door moaned open under Liam's light touch. "There's a stairwell," he whispered, hope igniting in his voice. The officer nodded, stealing a glance back toward the dim light illuminating the entrance. "We need to be fast. They won't hesitate to come for us." But as they started toward the stairwell, a cold chill crept up the girl's back. An instinctive hush fell over the building, making her skin prickle. "Wait!" a low, sinister voice reverberated through the darkness, sending waves of panic crashing through her. "What is it?" the officer asked, tension thickening in her words. That voice. The girl turned and felt the icy grip of realization. Jared was closer than they thought. "Look out!" The warning escaped her just as the shadows deepened into chaos. The officer raised her weapon, poised for confrontation. The girl's heart thundered wildly as another figure stepped into the light, revealing a face she recognized all too well. Jared. And standing beside him, the child from before. Her world tipped on its axis. The true horror was just beginning. "You should have listened to her. She knows too much." Jared's voice dripped with malice, but what secrets would be uncovered now that they were out of options? Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. The dim light flickered, casting ominous shadows that danced across the walls. The girl felt her heart hammering, each thud like a countdown to dread. Jared's icy gaze sent shivers straight to her bones. Why was he there? He was supposed to be a ghost of the past. "Why are you doing this?" she choked out, desperately trying to catch his eye, hoping to find some shred of humanity. But the expression on Jared's face remained stone cold, a mask of calculated cruelty. "Oh, sweet child," he began, his voice smooth like silk but laced with venom, "it's never personal. It's just business. And you've become quite the complication." Liam stepped protectively in front of the girl, his young frame trembling but his determination evident. "You won't hurt her. We'll fight you." The officer glanced between them, her gaze stretched tight with urgency. "Get ready to move," she whispered, her hand clenched around her weapon. "Whatever you're planning, stop it." Without flinching, Jared raised his hand, signaling to the men who had flanked him, blocking the exit with their sinister silhouettes. "There's nowhere to go, officer," he said, a grin cutting across his sharp features. "You think you can protect them? It's adorable." The girl's mind raced. If only she could distract him, buy them just a few more seconds. "What does it take to make you let us go?" she shouted, voice cracking from fear and desperation. "Is it money? Just promise you'll leave us alone." His laughter echoed, dark and mocking, reverberating against the cold walls. "Money? Oh no, you've misunderstood. I don't need money. I need answers," and unfortunately he pointed an accusatory finger at the girl. "You're the key." She flinched at the weight of his words. Answers? What could she possibly tell him that he didn't already know? In that moment, the officer made her decision. Run. Now. She shouted, her voice slicing through the tension like a razor. Take the stairs. Liam grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward the rear stairwell. They dashed, hearts pounding in sync with their footsteps, desperation propelling them into the darkness. Jared roared, "Don't let them get away." His men surged forward, tracking them like wolves after prey. The stairwell was concrete and cold, a narrow path spiraling upwards, illuminated only by flickering emergency lights that barely pushed back the overwhelming gloom. The girl's breaths came in frantic bursts. What do we do? We can't keep running. Just keep going. Liam urged, trying to keep pace with her racing heart. We need to find another way out. As they reached the second floor, the air felt charged. Every creak and whisper echoed like a warning, amplifying their fears. They turned a corner, both adrenaline and terror gripping them. They rounded a corner, and suddenly another door. It looked sturdy, like it might shield them from whatever awaited outside. Here! Liam shouted, his eyes brightening with a hint of hope as he pushed it open, just enough to slip inside. They squeezed into a small, dimly lit room, holding their breath, freezing to listen for any signs of pursuit. Shadows flickered, and the girl's heart raced at the thought of Jared closing in. Did we lose them? She whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I don't think so. Liam started, glancing at the door. The echoing footsteps sent waves of unease flooding through them, then, the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock chilled her. It's not over yet, came Jared's taunting voice from the other side, wickedly close. You can't hide forever. With every second ticking down, dread filled the room. What would happen when he found them? Would they find a way out, or was this the end? The girl felt something shift within her. There had to be a way. Maybe there's a window, she murmured, glancing around. But could they trust the drop to the ground below? Her heart tightened as the decision loomed, a leap of faith or a desperate confrontation. And then, above the foreboding darkness, an unexpected sound, a faint but distinct tapping. It echoed from the roof, eerie yet strangely promising, as if the universe was offering one final chance. Did you hear that? She asked, heart pounding anew. What if it's Jared's men? Liam whispered, fear building in his eyes, but the tapping grew louder, insistent. It could be their last chance. Let's check it out, she suggested, ready to take the risk. With a deep breath, they moved toward the noise, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of despair. Time was running out, and one way or another, they were about to find out what waited beyond the door. Would they be met with safety or danger? In the grip of uncertainty, one question loomed: could they escape the shadows of their past? The silence in the small room hung thick as the girl and Liam held their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash of intentions. The officer had taken up a defensive stance, her weapon steady, but the atmosphere felt charged with a terrifying potential. Jared's voice echoing outside sent ice down the girl's spine. He was closer than ever, too close. She shot a glance at Liam, who looked just as terrified. Stay calm, the officer whispered, her eyes darting from the door to a nearby window that seemed to mock them. It was high up but could offer a means of escape. We're not done yet. Then the tapping resumed, frantic but rhythmic, as if beckoning them toward the roof, a siren song of possibilities. They had to make a choice. The girl steeled herself against the familiar weight of doubt. We need to reach that tapping, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. No way, Liam protested, it could be him. But the officer didn't hesitate. We're out of options. If we don't take a chance, we'll be caught. You two, follow me. Heart pounding, they edged toward the old wooden staircase that spiraled upward. Each step felt like a countdown against an unseen clock. The tapping grew louder, a promise of hope leading them towards whatever salvation lay above. Why is Jared after you? Liam asked, panic threading through his voice. What does he see in you? I don't know. She hissed back, but the truth etched deep within her heart. She was the key, a tangled link in a chain she couldn't fully comprehend. But we can't think about that now. As they reached the roof access, they heard Jared's voice, cold and mocking, drift up through the stairwell. You think you can run? I can play this game all night. The officer pushed the door open, and they stepped out into the frigid night air. The rooftop view spread before them like a cinematic panorama, an expanse of dark ocean waves of rooftops, lights twinkling like glistening seashells. But above all that beautiful, chaotic city lay an even darker threat, darkness lurking just behind them, a malevolent force that sought to find them. Quick! We can climb up onto that ledge. The officer urged, pointing to a crevice leading further up. The tapping resonated nearer now, beckoning them. In one swift motion, they dashed across the flat rooftop to reach safety, but as they did, a chilling laugh broke the night. Jared and his crew had managed to reach the stairwell, their shadows becoming predators against the glow of distant city lights. There's nowhere to go. Jared yelled, bravado spilling from his lips. You're running toward your end. In that moment, something shifted within the girl, a well of ancient energy surged through her veins. We're not running away, she shouted back, her voice echoing with defiance. We're taking back control. With every ounce of determination, she leapt to the ledge. Follow me. She yelled, legs stretching across the divide. Liam followed, heart pounding as they clung to the ledge, ascension feeling both liberating and terrifying. The officer took their rear, guarding against the impending shadows. Don't let them get you. The officer called, her voice coursing with urgency. As they reached to scale the top ledge, the atmosphere thickened, shadows creeping inward, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The girl pushed forward, adrenaline propelling her. They had to reach the roof across. With one last leap, they landed on the other side, breathless and raw with energy. But they didn't stop. They dove further into the rooftop maze, a tangled web of ducts and chimneys, every footfall echoing a promise of escape. Where do we go from here? Liam gasped, breathless but alive. There. The officer pointed to a fire escape ladder that hung down into the alleyway below. Pure instinct and urgency surged through them. Gripping Liam's hand, they rushed towards it, nearly breathless. Just as they plummeted down the rungs, they heard Jared's furious voice crackle from above. I'm not through with you yet. You'll pay for this. The girl darted down the ladder, limbs trembling but moving with fierce purpose. They hit the ground with a thud, but they didn't stop. Where to? The girl panted as they sprinted into a narrow alley, shadows rising like phantoms from every corner. Keep running. The officer commanded, glancing back to catch sight of their pursuers. They dashed through a maze of brick walls and forgotten litter, the adrenaline turning their fear into purpose. Like a haunting refrain, the words "You're the key" echoed in the girl's mind. Finally, desperation led them to a small entrance, a disused storefront. They hurried inside, hearts hammering in unison. For a moment, they caught their breath, shadows curling around them like tendrils of fog. The girl's mind raced. What does he want from me? Whatever the secret is, the officer answered, we'll figure it out together. But right now, we need to survive. Outside, they heard Jared's men closing in, their voices angry and relentless. Stay low, stay quiet. The officer urged as they huddled behind a broken counter. It was quiet for a moment, the silence heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Dread pooled in the pit of the girl's stomach, but just then, the dim light flickered across aged photos on the wall, a forgotten time, a time of innocence. The girl blinked, and that familiar wave of realization washed over her like a cool breeze on a summer day. There, she spotted a faded newspaper article featuring her family, her brother, and a deep connection to a world of secrets. Everything clicked in her mind, like pieces of a worn puzzle finally falling into place. They want the truth, she whispered, the weight of her discovery lifting her heart into clarity. But I can't do this alone. Liam squeezed her hand, belief shimmering in his eyes. You're not alone. And in that moment, they understood. They may have been running, but the truth was ready to be unleashed, ready to burn brighter than the darkness trying to consume them. We fight together, the officer declared, face fierce with conviction. From here on out, we don't hide from the truth, we embrace it. As Jared's men continued to search, the impending confrontation drew near. The girl stood taller, determination flooding through her core. It was time to unveil the secrets, time to reclaim control, and time to cut through the shadows for good, and just as she stepped from behind the counter, ready to face whatever lines had been drawn, she knew in this fight for truth, justice wasn't just a concept, it was a fierce human spirit ready to rise. They were ready to tear down the veil of deceit, to claim their power, and to embrace the storm. There was nowhere left to run, it was time to stand and fight. Now, as the echoes of their determination mingled in the air, they faced the next chapter together. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to never miss another thrilling story. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And be a true fan, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story unfolds. This is the moment to show you care.